get up, and when we do our work around, we don't want anybody to threaten anybody. We want stability, we want order, we want peace, we want security in the country. In order to have all these things, there must be responsible people who must ensure that within the law, within the Constitution and the law, those things happen. Now, I want to proceed and say there are certain basic facts that we are, in our view, want to go through so that when it is time for all of you to make comments, we hear whether you have another set of basic facts or we share these basic facts, so that at the end of the day, we narrow our different views to a certain set, basic, that can allow us to move on because of commonality. Because we can't end up with different facts and different opinions, and then we close the meeting without saying, out of all different opinions and facts, different opinions and inputs, there are these that are dominant, 1, 2, 3. So let's move with that so that we're able to move forward. Even though there could be one person or two people who differ, but at the end of the day, we must go with what is the general opinion. But the general opinion, I must say, qualified, is not just a question of a number. It's also because somebody can say, stop this meeting now. Let us all have bread and chicken. And the majority can say, yes, we agree that stop the meeting. Let us have chicken, but that's not our objective. And therefore, it can't be feasible. It can't be taken on the basis that it is not reasonable. Now, the first undisputable fact is that over time, especially somewhere last year in November, the government of the Republic of South Africa identified what government recognized as a problem. This came in the form of illegal mining, in other words, mining, but by people who do not necessarily have licenses to mine, mining by people, in the majority of cases, who come from outside South Africa illegally. In other words, by people who are not supposed to be in South Africa. But in one way or the other, they find themselves in South Africa, and once in South Africa, they then identify certain areas in our country, in certain provinces, that there are some mines in that in those parts of the country, and they simply went there to mine. So, two things that were unlawful happening now. You are unlawfully inside the country, South Africa. Two, you then engage in an unlawful activity of mining without a license. Now, this was identified in 7 provinces, not one province. It was identified in Gauteng, in Northwest, in the Free State, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, KZN, which one is the last one that I'm leaving? Northern Cape, yes. Northern Cape. so 7 out of 9 provinces, that there is coexistence of the two problems of people coming from outside the country without any permit, without any papers, and they become unlawful immigrants in the country, and then they engage in unlawful activity in the form of unlawful mining or illegal mining. Then the South African government decided that because this is unlawful, like all other unlawful activities in the country, government must act. And in this instance, government decided that there should be a program to stop this unlawfulness, and that program will be called Valumkoti, as they called it. Now, I must expand here to say other countries like Botswana, north of us, at one point they identified this problem. There could be another country or other countries which identify this problem happening in their country in one form or the other, but we're not the only country that has experienced this. And they acted. And so we acted, South African government acted, just like any other government, any other country would do. What was Valumkoti about as conceived? Firstly, it pulled together a number of departments. DMR, I think DMRE. It pulled together human settlement, it pulled together police, it pulled together social development, it pulled together the army. Let me just say the security cluster in the main, and in justice. All of these departments were pulled together to say, work on the implementation of Operation Valumkoti with an aim of ensuring that these two unlawful activities of people streaming into the country illegally, unlawfully, and then engaging in this activity. But the South African government also identified other things that were discernible, in other words, that were observed in the process, which were associated with the streaming of so many people into South Africa and doing what they were doing also unlawfully. There were allegations of issues like stock theft. There were allegations, and in some circumstances or instances, damage to critical infrastructure in South Africa around the areas where these activities were taking place. There were also, as reported to police and investigated by them, issues of proliferation of illegal firearms, in other words, unlawful firearms. Some of these firearms, high caliber firearms, which are dangerous, without any license. There were reports and there were investigations. And in some instances, these investigations led to, indeed, identification of these and unlawful and confiscation of this. But closely associated with this, and closely associated with this unlawful mining or illegal mining, There was also observation and discovery that these firearms have found their way underground, right there, and they're there. Now, there was also identification of large quantities of things like food, beers, Heineken in particular, generators, petrol, fireworks, including explosives. All of these were discovered by police in their operations when they started working. This, together with grinders, and photographs were taken of all of these. We have them. And they've been presented to authorities in government to say this is what illegal immigrants, and this is what unlawful mining has brought about, which was not there before in those particular areas, but which now are there. Okay. Now, it then consolidated the resolve of government to indeed act on this, on all of this, because no country in the world can simply sit when illegal firearms are being proliferated, because it would mean that these things are now constituting danger to the existence of lawful citizens of that particular country. In other words, if all of these things that I'm talking about are found now here in Stilfontein, citizens of Stilfontein would be correct, and it would be absolutely legitimate for them to lodge a complaint to the South African government that how do you sit and smile somewhere when we are now surrounded by people who are not South Africans, illegally so. We now have an illegal or unlawful activities in the form of illegal mining, and you are not helping us. We now have illegal firearms that are being proliferated around here. We now have stock theft. We now have damage to electricity infrastructure in particular that is happening around here. So what is the government doing? So those complaints and grievances would be more than 100% legitimate for the citizens to complain. And there's no government duty in terms of the Constitution of the Republic is to protect citizens. Protect citizens of the country, whether they are poor, whether they are rich, whether they are in mining areas or whether they are in non-mining areas, whether they are green in color or they are blue in color if they such. Government's duty and mandate is to do everything meaningful in their means to protect citizens of the country. I've already indicated the exposure that was brought about by the two to the citizens, against which the South African government had duty to act. I've already indicated that. Now, in the Northwest in particular, there is a government, a provincial government. They were acting as well to say, national government, there is this exposure to the citizens in the province under our jurisdiction and our responsibility. Local government in the form of district and local, they're also lodging these complaints and talking about in various platforms that there is this problem And this is how Valumkoti came about. Now, let me at this stage indicate one thing that now, as we continue to talk about this that is emerging, it is the realization that when this concept of Valumkoti was put together, it could have been better or even richer, this program, if it was coupled with another aspect of this. What is this? It would have been a program to address two issues in particular. Within the communities where there are instances of illegal mining, namely poverty in those areas that are affected in all 7 provinces, the level of poverty. You would say we now have the concept called Valumkoti. We now have 7 or so shafts around this place. In our conceptualization and implementation, the communities that are around there are poor. How do we, in the implementation of this project or program, we also address this particular problem? 2, these communities are also by and large experiencing high levels of unemployment. How do we, in the process, address the 2 challenges? Poverty, unemployment. Now, how would that have come about? It would have come about because we would have asked our questions. What is it that attracts so many people into this unlawful activity? Or let me just say, into this activity, unlawful as it is. Why would people, adults, want to do something unlawful? Or it is poverty at the root cause. What else? It is unemployment. And therefore, in our addressing this unlawfulness, let us also go to the root cause, the 2 in the main. Poverty and unemployment, where, in particular in those areas, it was an omission. Now, remember that this is an activity by human beings, and one of the things that human beings are characteristic of is errors. Human beings by nature are prone to errors. I think God reserved perfection to himself alone. It is only God that is perfect. Now, therefore, whoever was involved in crafting Operation Valumkoti, aware or unaware, consciously or unconsciously, they also committed an error. But they were not alone in this. If it was national government alone, provincial government also made an error. Local government also made an error. Various organizations also made an error. The unions made an error by not pointing out that, please, if as you complete this concept and you are about and you've started implementing it, do develop a program to address poverty and unemployment. But communities around those, I don't know how Operation Valumkoti was introduced in those communities. I wasn't there. I wasn't part of that. But I suppose that there would have been a way or the other of engaging local communities when this project or this program was introduced and an omission was made by those who are involved on the side.
All right, Police Minister Senzo Mchunu speaking there at Stilfontein, talking about the situation there, saying that there's a lot of criminality that takes place around illegal mines. We will have more on that story.